especially if they had a higher up in kind of the DEI part of the school, because we had things like the Rainbow Lounge, which was our,
Huh?
like,
At
LGBT.
MIT?
Yeah. If you went into the Rainbow Lounge, like, they had the wall of genders. It was the entire wall with, like, 500 different genders and pronouns on it.
Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, thank you guys for tuning in. Today we have a very special guest, a young lady who I have been tracking for quite a while now, not in a stalkerish way, don't worry. But I have seen you throughout my algorithms for probably the last 2 or so years, right? And the reason why your story specifically was resonating is because we come from the same place. And so that's something I really want to delve into. So, Kiyah, thank you so much for making time for us today.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I've seen you pop up on my feed a few times too, so this was destined to happen, this
That's
collaboration.
right. Absolutely. So, I want to start off in an awkward place. How did you end up woke, as I guess we
Oh,
would call in this day and age? Yeah. How did you find yourself all the way there?
that's a good question, and I guess it was just kind of how I was raised.
Mm,
I definitely I mean, I'm sure this is something that you can relate to as well, but, being raised Black, kind of the kind of what's normal is to be very focused on race and kind of everything that you
mm,
do, and so that was kind of the start of it for me, was being raised to just believe every decision that you make needs to be filtered through, is this something like a Black person would do, I guess?
mm,
And then as I got older and I got into high school and, well, I guess really in school in general, I was taught
mm,
more of the wider woke, ideology of kind of bringing in the gender and, you're a
mm,
woman, so you need to think about things from the perspective of being a woman.
mm,
You need to think about how you are, every word that you are saying could potentially offend people. Everybody who isn't a white man is oppressed, and so we need to, everything that we do needs to be hyper, kind of fixated on thinking through this lens of how is this person being oppressed by white men today. So it kind of
mm.
started with this hyper fixation on my unchosen characteristics determine my decisions when I was young, and then as I got older, all of these other kind of identities, I guess, kind of got thrown at me as, okay, well, all of these things are also important. And it's not just you, it's everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody has these identities, and you have to hyper analyze their identities and make sure that their decisions are aligning with the things that they're supposed to be doing. And then
Mm.
it just spiraled from there. So,
Wow, that sounds exhausting, first and
yeah.
foremost. But I want to start off in the first, I guess, identification class, which is blackness, right? So, growing up, what was expressed to you about what it meant to be black? What was the sort of conversation? And then what were your own dynamics like?
Yeah. Okay. What did it mean to be Black? I think
Mm,
that's a really good question. I think a lot of it wasn't necessarily even about what it meant to be Black. I think it was more the opposite of things that you weren't supposed to do.
okay,
Like I got
that's
a lot
good.
of lists. Yeah. I had a lot of lists of things that I wasn't supposed to do. Like, you're not supposed to support a Republican candidate, for example, is like a big thing.
Mm,
Like, you're not supposed to necessarily get good grades in school.
mm,
If you get good grades in school, then you might be trying too hard to be white. If you speak proper English, you might be trying too
yeah.
hard to be white. It was things like that. So it wasn't necessarily a list of things that I was supposed to do. I was just constantly being told, "Oh, don't do this. Don't do this. Don't try to do this.
Mm,
Don't try to accomplish this. Don't think this way." Um, and that was kind of the way that it ended up. And I guess it indirectly did lead me towards this, like, well, you are just supposed to do whatever everybody else that your skin color is doing. Like, you're
right.
supposed to agree with them and do whatever they're doing, kind of follow the crowd. And if you step outside of it, like, you're gonna get reprimanded if you have the wrong hobbies, or again, you speak the
Mm,
wrong way, or you wear your hair the wrong way, or, whatever you do that's kind of outside of the norm.
mm.
So
So you're not somebody who strikes me as stereotypically black, right? Which I get the same sentiment, which is a double edged depending on where it's coming from. But for me, it's a compliment because you seem to be your own person. And so, how did you sort of blend into that world of all these things, this gatekeeping of your identity? Like, were you somebody who kind of sometimes went against it? Was it hard for you, or did you find your way just fully diving into that that sort of identity?
Yeah, yeah, I definitely went against it at times. So, like,
Mm,
for one thing that I kinda talked about earlier, like, I was a pretty good student when I was in
mm,
school, and this was something that got me in trouble quite a bit.
mhm.
We had, the DEI affinity groups, when I was in high school, so, what
Wow.
if it yeah, so I don't know if anyone listening knows what that is, but it's, like, these groups where you get together based on your race, essentially, in school, and so you have, like, a Black affinity group, an Asian affinity group, a Hispanic affinity group, and you talk about things with people of your race, and then you're supposed to kind of relate to things. And when I was in this affinity group, there were kids that be they would give me a hard time because they would say, "Well, you're studying too much. You're trying to be white." Like, this was something that was a constant thing that would come up. Um,
What?
so being a good student and just caring about my education was something that really
Mm,
got me kind of bullied by a lot of the other, like, Black kids that I was in school with, and I think it didn't I said it's like, especially at that age, it's really, like, the culture. It's not just,
mm,
those kids having those issues. A lot of the time, it's their parents kind of telling them that,
yeah.
if you study or if you get good grades, like, that either that doesn't matter or it shouldn't matter, or if you do it, then you're gonna be too white, and that mindset that was passed down to them was definitely then projected onto me, and I just kinda
Mm,
stopped. Like, I still had got good grades in high school, but I stopped talking about it, especially around
mhm,
them, because it was something that was going to lead to, like, a fight every time, or not a fight necessarily, but, like, me getting kind of bullied if I was to ever, like, talk about being in, like, an AP class or getting a good grade on a test or something, because I knew that they weren't doing that thing and that they didn't care
mm.
or want to achieve those things, so
Hmm. So you're basically having to now dumb yourself down in order to be socially acceptable in this group of your people, basically. Did you always feel a dissonance, like you're playing pretend, or again, was it something that you sort of became familiarized? Because within my own story, there was a time when I lost myself and I was so deep into it, the whole, what it means to be black. And for me, it went into the streets and things of that nature, right? By the grace of God, I did not lose my life going down that path, but that was destined to be. And so for you, was it this thing of you're kind of covertly like, okay, I really hold these sentiments and I really am this person. I'm listening to my little music on the side here, Garfunkel or whatever it is, like away from my black group.
yeah, yeah, that was I pretty much did have, like, almost 2 lives, like, yeah, the life of
Mm.
where I was listening to, like you said, my pop music, my Ariana Grande, whatever I was listening my musical theater I was really into,
Uh,
and, loving to do math and robotics and all of my weird nerdy stuff I did at school, and then the other part of me that would come out when I was with, um, my friends or people at my church when I was growing up, or people on my
mm.
basketball team who would have totally given me a hard time for it. And so, yeah, I definitely, like, had to split my life into these very 2 separate, like, existences, I guess.
Wow. So, okay, when did you graduate high school? You don't mind me asking?
2017.
Okay. So, okay, that's interesting. So this entire Black Lives Matter sort of movement, had it already made its way into high schools? Because you say you guys had affinity groups. That's insane. I had like, okay, African American Student Union or whatever, right? Affinity groups is straight up segregation between races on high school campuses. So yeah, like what was it like in high school for you if you can sort of display because most of us don't know.
Mhm. Yeah, the BLM stuff, it had kind of started when I was in high school, because if I remember Trayvon Martin, which was
Mm,
kind of the when BLM started, was in 2014, so that was right
mhm.
as I was getting into high school, and I think that was, like, either my freshman year or the year before was when they started affinity groups at
Okay.
my high school. Like, it was a pretty new program. Yeah, the
Mhm.
BLM riots and stuff didn't happen until I was in college. Um, but yeah, affinity groups, yeah, it is segregation based on race, and it was
Yeah.
I think one of the most interesting things about affinity groups is that it was every race. So there was like a Asian, like Latin, Black, and then there was one called Allies, which was for white students. So there wasn't even a white affinity group. There was just an
That's
ally group.
insane.
Yeah.
What? You just get
So
to be the psychic?
Yeah, yeah, so we were talking about like, how hard it was being black, and I went to a majority white school. I went to school in Texas, so it was like 80% of the student body was in the allies
Was
group where they were being taught how to make us feel better in the school.
Oh, it would be all hilarious if it wasn't so tragic. That's insane. Okay. 80% of our student body is allies to this tiny minority of people that we're discriminating and segregating based on race in Texas, by the way. Shout out Texas. I got love for Texas. Save Texas. So, okay. So you're coming into high school. There's already this sort of atmosphere that's happening. Because again, I can only relate it to sort of parallels of my own story and stories of those that I know in my sort of age range, where it's like probably midway through college, coming out of college, they're now having this full sweep of BLM, but you're in high school, you're the most susceptible, right, that you could probably be throughout your entire life, including, those adolescent, toddler stages of life because you want acceptance. You want to be, not an outcast necessarily. You don't want to be bullied. Nobody wants to be bullied. And so this is just, again, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around this thing of, is it the teachers are sort of like, do you feel a sentiment of they really believe this and they're looking to push these sort of agendas? Like, what is that? Like, what's the atmosphere? I want to get the emotional aspect of it.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess it wasn't necessarily every single teacher in high school. It was every
Mm,
single teacher in college, but it wasn't every
okay.
single teacher in high school. I had quite a few teachers that were very normal in a sense,
Mm,
which is probably what helped me to get to where I am now was that I did
oh,
have teachers who treated me like a normal student and didn't harp on,
mm,
"Oh, you're a black woman, so I have to treat you differently in your classes," or I have to, they were very much like, "Oh, you're a student, and you're a student who is showing up and trying and, wants to do well, so I'm gonna treat you like a student who's doing well in my class."
yeah.
But in that DEI atmosphere, because that was the affinity groups were led by some of the teachers, um, and that part of it, it was let me see, it was very like, hmm,
You can go
trying to put
ahead.
it
No
in some very
filter. Don't you worry about
yeah.
it.
Yeah, it was almost like they were trying to come up with problems that, like, didn't exist almost, like,
Okay.
I think that when I was in those affinity groups, I almost didn't because I had so many teachers that were so normal, and I mean, really every teacher I had in my normal classes and stuff was normal, and I said no one
Mm,
treated me poorly, no one treated me like I was a fragile snowflake, like, no one, treated me differently because of my race, but I go into these groups, and then I would be told, "Oh, like, the white teachers have this implicit bias against black people and there's this inherent racism that white people have that they can never unlearn because it's so deeply rooted into how they're raised and just the culture that we live in. It almost like it makes you paranoid in a way that you wouldn't
mm,
otherwise be if you weren't in these settings, right? Because
yeah.
if you're just going along living your life doing your thing, like I said, maybe I had some of this from some of my upbringing with, like, being around my church and stuff like that, where there
Mm,
was a little bit of this, like, "Oh, you know, the country's racist." But when you're in school and it's like, "Oh, your classmates who are voting for Trump or who are supporting Trump are, voting for someone who is going to bring back slavery." Like, this was something that I was we talked about during those affinity groups, um, then it's like, okay, now I'm thinking it's not just, oh, maybe there's some discrimination in the country, which is kind of what I thought when I was
mhm.
younger, but it's like, oh, now I'm thinking the people who are sitting next to me in math class hate me and want me to be a slave. Like, that's a
Wow.
like, and so it kind of like it just makes you, yeah, paranoid, depressed, angry, like, it adds all of these negative emotions,
Yeah.
and it's like and then the way that they teach it, which is that, "Oh, this is just something that's part of being white in America." It's like, well, there's nothing you can do to change it either. It's just
Mm,
the people around you are like this, they're not gonna change, there's no conversation you can have that can change their mind because it's just a part of the structure of the country. Then you start to just become, yeah, like, a very terrible person to be around because that's just the way
mm.
that you believe the world functions and that there's it's out of your control.
So I'm sure you're somebody who, otherwise would have a whole host of different friends, right? The quirkiest of quirks. But now you're relegated to the realm of like you have to have a specific social circle. So were you somebody who then found it difficult to have relationships with, these so-called colonizing oppressors next to you in class?
Oh, absolutely. All the way
Mm.
from high school, middle of high school through most of college, I
Mm.
very much had a hard time with, yeah, being friends with someone who was white, especially, like, a white guy. Like, if I had to work with a white guy on,
Mm.
like, a project or something for school, it would be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, like, is this" like, I would be hyper paranoid of, like, "Oh, this person said something. Is they're saying it with this tone because they think I'm a black woman and they're looking down on me." Like, it adds so much
Wow.
anxiety to, like, every interaction of, because 'cause you're almost and looking for that problem and, like,
Yeah.
looking for that, "Oh, where is the proof that this person actually is, like, out to get me or actually thinks this way
Mm.
about me, even though there's no proof that that's the case, but because it's, "Oh, well, they probably don't even realize it." It's this implicit racist bias that they've just been embedded with, so it's there even if they aren't showing it explicitly, so I have to, like, look for it now. So, yeah.
Wow. And I want to get to something before I forget because I want to get then into college, and I can only imagine what we're about to step into. But you reference how in church you were being told, like were you in a predominantly black church?
Yeah, I was in a predominantly black church.
Hmm.
It wasn't like the pastor would get up on stage and be like, "White people are
Okay,
sinners," or anything like that.
because that's
It
going
was
on nowadays, and I rebuke that in the name of the No, 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 no.
Yeah, but there definitely was, like, an atmosphere in my church because we didn't have a lot of white any a very small number, I guess, of white people that came to church, and they were almost always,
Hmm.
like, married to someone who was black or,
Oh,
like,
okay.
something, but there was always kind of this, the whispering of, like, the white person who comes to church, and it's like, "Oh, like, are they a cool white person? Are they not a cool white person? Like, should we need to keep an eye on them because they might be racist?" Like, this was kind of the talk
Wow.
amongst the people, like, yeah, it was definitely a, like, "Well, we need to, like, almost test them to make sure they belong here before we can accept them," sort of thing, and so that was definitely something that, yeah, as a kid impacted me when there's, like, a new white kid who's coming to church and I'm hearing the adults being like, "Oh, well, you heard about that family." Like, I don't know if they're, like, I don't know if they who they voted for. I don't know what they support. I don't know if they're if they're
Mm.
if they're racist or if they're gonna be okay being here, and it's like, well, they're already here. Like, I'm sure they're probably fine. But,
You got too much sense for that environment, and that's why you got in trouble. Wow.
but
That's actually extremely sad to hear because here's supposed to be a space where all people, right? You're preaching
yeah.
of a God of a love, and yet he discriminates based on race and and voting preferences, which by the way gets into a contradiction around this whole thing of, especially in the black community where you have allegedly many folks claim to be Christians and hold conservative values, but then vote for the most liberal-minded leftist, quote unquote, progressives. But that's something we can probably unpack as we move forward. But I
Yeah.
want to get into your college days. So you end up going where? You stay in Texas?
No, I went to school in Boston. So I
Oh
went
Lord.
from yeah, so I went from one of the most red cities, in the country to one of the bluest cities in the country.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
And do you go there because kind of like, oh, this is going to be the temperament of the people around there? It is more woke. Like, are you in that mindset already?
Yeah, yeah, that was definitely a large part of it was knowing
Mm.
especially because, yeah, I started college in 2017, so this was right after Trump won his
Right.
first term, and so the idea was like, I mean, after Trump won, I was like, "Oh my gosh, they're bringing back The Handmaid's Tale, like, you know, like, we're gonna be put in these baby birthing camps, they're gonna put gay
Wow.
people in camps, we might bring back segregation," like, even though we already had affinity groups, but, like, I'm like, "I need to go," like I'm like, "I need to go somewhere where I'm gonna be safe and where I'm gonna be around people who are gonna keep me safe," and so I definitely was looking only
Mm.
at, like, for schools in, like, California, New York, Boston, like, places that I thought I would, oh, I'm going to be around all of the allies and the people who already, agree with all of this stuff, and
Yeah.
they will, protect me from the, Trump supporters that are trying to kill me. Like that was my
Wow.
mindset going into college.
And you went to what university or college? I mean,
I went
if you
to
don't mind me asking.
MIT.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. With that mind, yeah, of course. Okay. So MIT is supposed to be an institution focused on what exactly?
Science and math and facts and yeah.
Okay. But what MIT actually now is
Yeah, none of that. It is definitely more just pushing ideology and,
mm,
over everything, which, yeah, is kind of what got me so much farther deeper, like, so
mm,
much more deeper into, like, wokeness was going to
mm,
MIT and having all of my professors who are, like, they've spent 20 years studying data science and statistics. They're, world renowned mathematicians, and they're,
mm,
pushing this idea that there's like an infinite number of genders, and that, like black people are being genocided by the police and all of these things. And I'm like, well, these are like the
mm,
smartest, mathiest people in the world, well, they must be, like, right about all of this. Like, for me, becoming super
mm.
woke wasn't something that happened through, like, TikTok or Tumblr. I didn't even have social media at the time. This is something I hear a
Wow.
lot of people talk about, like, "Oh, it's social media that's making people super woke." And, like,
Yeah.
I can't say that that's not part of it, and for a lot of people, I know that's the path they went down, but for me, it was entirely in person. It was being around adults and teachers who were telling me that all of this was true. It was having land acknowledgments, during my classes. It was having people go around and sharing their pronouns, people having the, like, pronoun pins on during class, and, like, professors making sure that everybody is following whatever their pronouns were, even if they changed from today to tomorrow to next week. And so all of this was made me go, "Okay, well, everything that I was taught when I was in high school, even though I had a little bit of reservation about it, it must be
Mhm.
true because all of these
Mm.
people who their entire job is study truth and facts and things, like, they're telling me this is true, so how can I, say any different?"
Wow. And so, did you get the sense that they actually believe this stuff, or looking back now, is it like maybe it was a survival tactic to be in those sort of environments?
I think it was a mix.
Okay.
There were definitely some people who, like, especially if they had a higher up in kind of the DEI part of the school, because we had things like the Rainbow Lounge, which was our,
Huh?
like,
At
LGBT.
MIT?
Yeah, which
Sis.
had, like, yeah. Yeah. If you went into the Rainbow Lounge, like, they had the wall of genders. It was the entire wall with, like, 500 different genders and pronouns on it. And so, like, there was, like, so, for example, like, that organization or that, like, location, we had teachers that were very involved in that. And so those
Mhm.
teachers definitely believed in, if they were, heading the Rainbow Lounge, they definitely believed in the 500 genders. They were putting them up on the walls. Um,
Yeah. This is their hangout spot. This is okay.
yeah. And then we had some teachers who were, especially, like, some of the older professors who definitely seemed
Mm.
to have, they were like, "I don't understand any of this. Like, what are these genders? Last time I checked, there were only 2, but if the young kids are saying that there's 75, then I'll just go along with it." So there was a mix of, people who were like, I'm just here to get paid and do my job, and, like, if I have to,
Mm.
call this person to Z them, then I'm okay with it." And then they were definitely people who were very I had a teacher in one of the classes I took, cry. She was a biracial teacher, and she cried
Mhm.
because she said that the white half of her was oppressing the black half of her, and that she was having a hard time with, like, be accepting the 2 halves of her, and the part of her that's oppressed her and the part of her who's not. And I think that was totally a real reaction. She was crying in the middle of class. So
Wait. These people need to write comedy for a living. You said this woman said that her white half, which half was it, ma'am? Did you did you like ever look back and go, which half? Was it from the torso down that was oppressing the upper region of your body? Ma'am. Oh, wow. What in the woke? Okay. Okay. See, this like you said, this was meant to be. This was destined to be. Thank you, God.
Yeah.
Because I have been wanting to get into the conversations around what's actually happening in education,
Mhm.
right? And because there's so many people still trapped in it, you don't necessarily get too much of it. And that's something that resonated with me when, I was first seeing your content. Obviously, it was just around the general sense of breaking out of this, leftist ideology. But MIT folks, like there's people out there whose kids are talking about Brown University, Columbia, uh, NYU, MIT, etc. And they're thinking maybe their kid is going to a good school. And you're telling me that you had a teacher, a professor, a grown up crying in class because her white half is oppressing the, was it like a 60-40 split? It's like, you know what I mean? Like, what? Yeah, I'm hung up. Okay, I got to move on with my life, but I'm gonna be on that one for like a week. And I'm gonna definitely be talking about that in like every other video now. That's crazy. Okay. So so what is the student response or reaction like when people are given the pronoun situation? Are you having like a few, is it like a few outliers, or is it like most people are giving into this thing?
Um, I guess what do you mean? Like, are most people, like, going along with it, or do most people,
Yeah,
like,
are you having,
have
like, everybody, like, he, him, they, them, she's, or
Mhm.
is it, like, no, him, like, no, like, or not even, like, my name is Frank and I'm a dude,
Oh,
or
no, everyone was going along with it, cause and it was we had, a what was it called? Like, we pretty much had a board, like a
Mhm.
diversity board at our school, and if you did something that went against the, like, DEI policies of the school, then you could be
Yeah.
reported to the board, and that could lead to repercussions, and so, like, I don't know of anybody who was ever, sent to the board for not doing the pronoun rituals, but I also don't know of
Okay.
anyone who ever, like, didn't do it. Like, I think everybody was afraid, not like, what would be the repercussions if I don't? Whether it's repercussions within the class itself, repercussions within the standing of the school. I had people at my dorm who were, um, kicked out of the dorm or asked to leave the dorm because of things that they did that offended the other students. And so they were asked to live off campus because the students got together and said, "We don't want this person here because they're being too offensive." So when you have like that kind of a culture, like I'm
Hmm.
sure for most people, I mean, for me towards the end of my college when I kind of started to wake up, but for most people, it was fear. And but because of
Mm.
that, for someone like me who was so deep kind of into wokeness, especially when I
Yeah.
first started, so the first 2 or 3 years of college, I didn't know that there was anybody who opposed it because no one talked about it. And I'm sure that there were probably kind of underground groups of people who were like, "Oh, this is insane,"
That's
but
insane,
I
yeah.
had no idea they existed, because I said nobody was openly talking about how crazy it was. Like, you almost had to be part of some sort of underground society to, like to know that, like, anybody thought any differently than what was being taught.
That is genuinely, I mean, yeah, sometimes you laugh to, to stave off the pain, but that is so dangerous. Like, I'm thinking about these adults who are creating a culture of terror and fear. But again, I mean, these are genuinely like Marxist trained individuals, right? They believe in a lot of this sort of leftist dogma of, we need to get rid of the thing, the problem, basically, like any means necessary. Like, did you get sentiments of revolution when you're on campus?
Oh, absolutely, yeah,
Hmm.
and I was one of those people, like,
Mm,
especially in my dorm specifically, I
yeah.
probably was in because each dorm at MIT is, like, kind of a specific culture, like,
Okay.
it's you don't really have, like, clubs. I mean, there are clubs, but it's much more like your dorm is your community, and for me,
Hmm.
my dorm was, like, the anarchist communist dorm, like,
I can kind of see that in you. That's funny. I can kind of see. I mean, you shed your old ways, but oh Lord. Okay.
yeah,
Wow.
um So there was definitely talk of, as I said, especially with Trump being
Mm,
in office, there was talk of, like, someone needs to, like, go take one for the team and take him out, and, like and that will be the start of taking the country back and, making sure this can never happen again, like, that was a pretty common sentiment among people that I knew, which was, yeah, like, especially, the words are violence, silence is
Mhm.
violence kind of crowd. It was like, this is a war against us, and so we need to fight back, and we need to do what we need to do in order to stop the country from going down this direction of being, I guess, just, like, more normal, more conservative, whatever it is that they were kind of afraid of. I mean, most of the stuff I said that they were afraid of was stuff that was out of like, not so detached from reality. Like, the fears
Mm.
that Trump was gonna, like, bring back slavery or something is, like, something that, like, no person who is paying attention, who, like, would ever think, but these were the fears people had, was like, "Oh, if this rhetoric, or if these people with this type of ideology, like, continue to gain power, then, yeah, we're gonna have people in concentration camps, we're gonna have slavery, we're gonna have people being, like, executed for, like, things," and, like, these were legitimate fears that people had our country going down.
Wow.
Then the reaction, I mean, if that was actually happening, then, like, yeah, we might need a revolution, but, like,
Yeah.
that's not what's happening, but the fear was still there, so that, like, well, we need to fight this, like, almost war, was, like, still the mindset.
Did you get a feeling that like, the white guilt conversation is oftentimes had, right? Did you get a sense that, especially for which I'm guessing was predominantly white students on campus at MIT?
Yeah, it's most yeah,
Okay, still,
yeah.
why that never changed, right? Just allies now. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
did you get a sense that some of these folks were coming from a place of feeling as if they had to make up for their whiteness? Or maybe even this was expressed?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely. Yeah. I think this is especially true with the policing
mm,
of the language and stuff, of trying to be a good ally, but
mhm,
also and I think I've talked about this maybe a little bit, but I talk about it more now because
okay,
I've never talked about this, like, a lot, but especially
mhm,
with the gender stuff, I think a lot
yeah,
of the people who took on some of these, like, neo-genders and stuff, it was 100%, "Well, if I'm just a straight white guy, I'm being told I
mm.
can't speak, I'm not allowed to have an opinion, I'm an oppressor, but if I take on, like, you know, this gender identity, and now I'm a what, trans, feminine, asexual, demi,
Yeah.
romantic, whatever label, like, well, I don't have to
Demi
really
is
do
crazy.
anything, but now I have all these oppression points, and now I'm allowed to speak, to have an opinion, and now, I'm allowed to police
Mm.
other people, and it's not just people policing me, and so it's almost like a power grab
Ooh.
from, like, the place of being, like, almost the opposite of, like, you know, what they preach is that Black people are being so left out of discussions, we need to listen to, marginalized voices, but the voices that are really being left out of these conversations does tend to be, like, white straight men, because 'cause they're so told to just be quiet and roll over and, you know, let everybody speak besides them, and so if
Mm.
they're trying to regain that power, it then ends up being a power grab, a power struggle, right? Of who
Yeah.
has more points, so that who can speak more. Well, I'm a Black woman, but now I'm a trans feminine, asexual, whatever, and so, like, it's it's trying to, like, how can I use whatever language or whatever labels I can to gain power so that I can just, like, speak freely without being, reported to the dean of
Yeah.
diversity, like.
Unbelievable. So, it's really like, yeah, this survival kind of mentality of if I'm going to make it in this thing, I have to transform myself into this sort of social environment, which is, I feel, equally as dangerous as if you actually believe it, or at least
Mhm.
close to as dangerous because you're still feeding into that system.
Yeah.
D it breaks my heart because you said something that when you're in this class, like, in my head, it's a few kids are putting up their hand and giving their Zems and, you know what I mean, like, Xenu, Lord of whatever, whatever. You're saying that everybody is in there just boom, boom, like machines, just, "These are my pronouns," going along with the machine, going along. even if you are somebody who was raised the most conservative, whatever it is, probably just going along with it. For me, as somebody who's seen the effects of cowardice, it is heartbreaking. But speaking of cowardice and bravery, okay, let's start segueing into actually, no, no, I'm not gonna skip this over. You were a non-binary. We got to get into this. Okay, what was that? How did you get there? Before we get into now, you coming out on the other side of this thing.
Yeah. That is the most frequently asked question, right? Why what
Mm,
does that mean and why
what
did I
is
get
that?
there?
What is that even?
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that there are a few reasons why I got to that point, but,
Okay.
I would say probably the biggest reason was that I was when I was younger, I definitely was not the most, like, feminine, like, traditionally feminine girl. I was into,
Mhm.
like I played a lot of sports, I liked, like, superheroes and stuff, and, so getting into, college and I was still kind of even though, like, when I was in Texas, it was a very big difference between me and kind of some of the more traditionally, like, feminine girls in, like, a very conservative part of Texas. When I
Okay.
got to college, there was a lot more people who were just like, "Oh, like, um, there's women who have, like, short hair and, like, women who
Mhm.
are, like, are, like" and it doesn't matter there. They're like, "Oh, it's whatever." But
Yeah.
there was still this, like, um, well, if you don't feel like you fit in with, like, the other women, then you probably just aren't one. Because if you know how, like, the kind of gender mentality works, like,
Mhm.
the big question around this is, the question, like, "What is a woman?" That's, like, the big
Yeah.
question around, like, all of the gender stuff, right? Um, there isn't really a definition, and that's why, like, they can't define what a woman is, you can't define who is, who isn't, it's just, they say a woman is whoever identifies as a woman, and they really
Mm.
mean that gender or what they consider to be important when it comes to your identity is not based on your biology, it's based on how you feel in relationship to social groups, which is
Hmm.
very tied into like the race stuff of like, your social group or like how how you see yourself and your racial identity is supposed to kind of determine all of your decisions. It's kind of
Mhm.
a similar thing with the gender of, like, how you see yourself when it comes to how you fit into different social groups is kind of supposed to determine your identity.
Okay.
Um, and so all of these different genders they're almost like little clubs in a sense, or the way that they see it. Like,
Yeah.
being a woman isn't like a biological thing for them, it's more of a social club where you can join or not join based on how you feel about being part of the club. Like that's really how they see it. And so it's not that they don't
Wow.
think that biology like exists. It's biology doesn't matter. What matters is how you feel relative to this term that gets you into this club. Um, and once you're in this club, that's going to determine how you see the world and all the decisions that you make and all of the things that you do. And so you have to align almost like your personality and your views or whatever with the club that you're supposed to be in. And that's why there's like
Hmm.
50,000 genders is because people just have like different personalities and different views about things and
Yeah,
like
multiple personalities in some cases. Mental illnesses and such
yeah.
can basically be quantified now in this kind of social club, literally, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's such a fascinating idea of womanhood is no longer a a natural imperative, but instead it is just an abstraction.
Mhm.
So is that why when you see what's her name? Ketanji Brown Jackson, I believe, Supreme Court Justice.
Mhm.
She's sitting there in a congressional hearing and she can't answer what a woman is. Is it because you're not allowed to, basically, once you're part of the kind of club system?
Kind of, but also it's like any definition of woman is going to exclude someone who feels like they're supposed to be part of the club.
Ooh.
So you have to kind of leave it open to whoever wants to be a part of it. Um, and the definition of woman, if I was to try to give a definition of what they would say it is,
Mhm.
uh, A woman would be someone who is oppressed by the patriarchy because they don't fit into, like, the male normative cultural standards or something like that. It would be something about how, like, women the definition of a woman is a person who has been oppressed or I mean, oppressed in the woke sense, but, like, oppressed because they're not a man. And then it's like, "Well, what is a
Mm.
man?" It's like, "Well, a
Yeah.
man is someone who benefits from the patriarchy." Like, that's kind of how they define it. And so if you are so any person who essentially feels like they haven't benefited from the patriarchy,
Yeah.
then gets pushed into this club of being a woman. And if you feel like you benefit from the patriarchy or you like want to benefit from the patriarchy, then you get pushed into this definition of being a man. Like it has nothing to do with biology and everything to do with again like this social
Mm.
hierarchy, systems of oppression, like that's kind of how they're defining it. And but
Mhm.
that's why it has to be so open is, well, this kind of goes into, like, the woke idea of, like, well, you have to validate people's feelings, and you have to validate their
Mhm.
lived experiences, and so we can't define woman because what if we then invalidate someone's experience? And what if we keep somebody
Mm.
out who was actually being oppressed in some sense? And so that's if I was to give a definition that I
Yeah.
think would be somewhat in their mindset of, like, why this is the case, that's kind of how I would explain it, is it's yeah, and then you have all of these different then groups that have branched off all of these non-binary identities because there is kind of this idea that, well, there isn't one way to be oppressed by the patriarchy. So now we need all of these different labels for all of these different forms of oppression, but in reality, what they end up being is, like I said earlier, more of like social clubs as to this is the label that I want to call myself, and I want to be around people who kind of feel the same way about, like, things that I do.
So why did you then choose the social club known as non-binary instead of maybe queer or demi, two-spirit, ham sandwich, whatever? Why that one?
Yeah. So queer is in this mindset, like, queer is the
Mhm.
umbrella term, so I would still be
Okay.
considered queer.
See, thank
Um,
you for clearing that up because
yeah.
I got we'll talk after, but I got a personal situation, somebody in my life where I'm like, "Why is queer okay now?" You're the first person who actually gave me that
Oh,
right there, so
yeah.
thank you. Okay. Umbrella
Yeah.
is queer. So everybody in there is queer, basically.
Yeah. So anybody
Okay.
who isn't I guess, yeah, queer is considered anybody who, like, is either, like, non-straight or considers themselves to be trans or considers themselves
Mhm.
to be kind of just, like, abnormal, I guess, when it comes to something related to either dating or gender. Because even, like, people who are, like, polyamorous, like, they're dating, like, 5 people, they're also considered queer. Like, it's anything that's kinda considered abnormal is considered queer. Um, and
Oh,
so
Lord.
the
Mm.
specific label that I actually use, because even non-binary is also an umbrella term,
Mm.
was,
Okay. Well, it's a
uh
club so there's clubs within the clubs, basically.
Clubs in the clubs, yeah. So
Oh,
my specific label was agender, that's what I identified as, which essentially means I believe I didn't have a gender.
okay.
And it was really and really the reason I picked agender was because I was like, "All of these genders are confusing me, and I don't know and I don't know what the difference is between all of them, so I'm gonna go with I don't have one." Um, so
The brain is too braining. Like, there's too much mental, activity taking place for you to just kinda go along with the rest. Like, what is a
Yeah.
two-spirit? I don't can we define the one
Yeah.
spirit, let alone the two? So, okay, so agender is just like no gender, cut and dry, done.
Yeah. So it was
Okay.
me trying to kind of feed into it, but also being too confused by all of it. So I kinda did the midway. I was like, "I think I should have a gender, but I
Yeah,
don't know what the gender should be, so I'm just gonna
yeah.
not have a gender." Like,
Okay, yeah, that seems like a simpler way out of this entire confusion. Yeah.
um, but
Wow. So, okay,
but
so you're now agent. So you can obviously hang out with the other queers, right?
mhm.
Technically, like there's still intersectionality. Is that the word? Right?
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
yeah, I know some stuff. So you have basically different groups because we have the alphabet community, right? The
Mhm.
alphabet soup, L's, the G's, the B's, the T's. So why is Q in all of these? Like, why did they start putting that's just a honest personal question, is like, if
Yeah.
queer is like this its own sort of umbrella for everybody, like if you're an L or a G or B, you're technically queer, right? But then they still have Q in
Yeah. And this kind of comes back to the, like, people you need to not invalidate people's feelings and let people choose whatever they wanna choose.
Mm,
Um, there are some people who prefer to use the term queer and not use any of the other letters, and then there are some
okay.
people who like to use the other letters and don't wanna use the term queer. So it's like, even though, yes, queer is supposed to be an umbrella, it's all about vibes and feelings. What you'll
Mm,
as we talk about this more, that's what you'll like, the one thing to take away about this, it's all about vibes and it's all about feelings. There's not really set
okay.
definitions of things. So, like, even though queer is
Wow.
supposed to be an umbrella term, there are
Yeah.
some people who don't like to use the term queer, and especially, like, um, more like I don't wanna say, like, old school, but, like, more like, there are a lot of people, especially you're seeing now, like, a lot of, like, gay and, like, lesbian people who are
Mhm.
like, "We don't want to affiliate ourselves with the
Yeah.
rest of the," like, right? So, there are some people who are like, "Hey, I'm an L or I'm a G, but I don't wanna be part of the Q." So there is, like,
Mm.
and there are people who are like, "I wanna call myself a Q, but I don't wanna call myself an L because I don't wanna be affiliated with, like, those gays who are too conservative for me." So, like, a lot of it has more to
Wow.
do with, again, is it vibes and,
Yeah.
like, being part of clubs, right? I don't wanna be a part of, even though I'm maybe someone's, like, a lesbian, they're like, "But I don't wanna be part of that club of lesbians who don't call themselves queer, so I'm gonna call myself queer instead." And then so it's
It's all about, like you said, vibes, and it's all about, like because inclusivity is this word that it's like I thought I understood, but the dynamics I'm getting now is like everything is about saving the basically the most fragile things emotions, right?
Mhm,
And, I heard something really interesting. I forget who this lady was, but she thank God for people like yourself because you have the same sort of discussion, but she was, some conference discussing what has led to this massive wave in, like, woke ideology, Marxism, etcetera, but more specifically, how society's degradation came as a result of basically the manipulation and coercion of feminine qualities, right? So,
mhm,
for example, a leftist judge is still a woman. She might want to, prescribe to one of these other ones. So she has a biological imperative to care for the fragile, care for the vulnerable, right? There's like
mm,
an actual biological aspect which comes from child rearing.
mhm,
And so that part can be used and turned on itself, right? It's like a man
mm,
as a provider. It can also be turned and he becomes a destroyer with that
mhm,
very same ambition and, and driving factor. And
yeah,
so the way she broke it down was excellent because she gave me insight into how it's almost like a warping or perversion of those otherwise beautiful qualities, those
mhm,
beautiful feminine qualities of gentleness and, and kindness and things of that nature, where now it's like you're protecting the criminal. You're the judge who, instead of protecting Lake and Riley or, what's her name, Cara Thompson, like now you're protecting the person who murdered them,
mhm,
and you believe that to be kindness, and so I see that same thing as you're sort of breaking this dynamic down of being like, it seems
yeah,
like it is sort of hijacking those systems to be like, oh, it's because it's the caring thing to do,
yeah,
right? And so I want to tap into this discussion because where it has been the most detrimental has been with the castration of kids. Like it's really just what it is, right? I'm not gonna call it transing because that's not a thing. And
yeah.
so did you see that making its way as you were in like was that already an idea that was being pushed that you guys are discussing?
The trans kids or
Yeah, like that is okay and it's something we're actually affirming and we're allies for, etc.
oh, absolutely, yeah. The idea that, that was, yeah, that was a big thing when I was in school, was this idea that there was a genocide against trans kids, and that the idea of that was there are people who are trying to push to ban these surgeries,
Mhm.
and we need to stop it because it is, yeah, genociding these kids, because if they are not affirmed, they're going to end themselves. I don't know if I can say the word, but,
Wow.
and this is a big thing that within that community, which is why there is all of this, you have to affirm, 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 affirm. Um,
Mhm.
I said for a lot of people, it's the social clubs for, 98% of people, I would say. But
Yeah.
there is a percentage of people who, um, really have I mean, they do have these severe body issues or these severe issues with their sense of self.
Yeah.
And for those people, the way to go about it, or the way that we were told, like, to go about it, was not these are people who need therapy, not these are people who
Yeah.
need help because they have these issues. It was
Mhm.
they need to be affirmed. Everything that they say about themselves needs to be believed. And if you don't, they're going to end themselves. And then this is especially true for kids because they are so much more vulnerable. So you have to affirm even more, and we have to push them through even more, or else these kids are going to end up not alive anymore. And that's kind of why, like, this paranoia of having to affirm everybody is, like, pushed so much, is, well, you
Yeah.
never know whether you're talking to someone who is in that group that's very very fragile, I guess, let me say. And you never
Mm.
know if this is someone who maybe you offend them somehow and then they go and they end themselves or hurt themselves in some way. And so you always have to have that paranoia of, how do you know that what you're doing isn't going to make this person go and do something to themselves, and it's on you if they end up doing that because of something that you said, because you misgendered them, because you didn't affirm their gender, because you called them a word that maybe they don't identify with. Like, for example, if a woman identifies as, like, a man, and then you say that she's pretty, you might
Yeah.
be invalidating her gender. So you can't use words like that either, because that person might go and end themselves. So
Because you called them pretty, therefore you're basically they're saying that you are dehumanizing them in an aspect by
Mhm.
whatever non-affirmation.
Yeah, and yeah. So it
I'm sorry.
just yeah, yeah.
No, I just want to say, like, again, it is so troubling, and I want you to be on your soapbox right now because this is of the utmost urgency. But
Mhm,
I've never, again, heard it from this perspective of the weight that they put on you guys
mhm.
as kids. Because yeah, you might be, this high school kids are getting the same way as elementary school kids are now getting the same thing as college kids are. You're the cause of this person taking their life because you're not willing to affirm basically a mental illness. Okay, yeah, that's deeply trouble. So please continue. That's just yeah, that's a lot to take in.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's the most, I mean, like you said, kind of that emotional manipulation of
Yeah.
kind of using this empathy that so many people have to, and I mean, and then you said this is something that's especially true with women, and it's true. You see that there are so many more women who kind of end up in this, um, falling down this rabbit hole than there are men. And I think that is largely the case, especially when we start talking about kids. Like,
Yeah.
our maternal instincts jump in as to, like, oh, we need to protect the kids, right? And
Yeah.
so when we are being told this, oh, these kids are being pushed to harm themselves because they're not being affirmed, and they we need to be able to provide them with this, or else something bad's going to happen to them. Of course, for us, our instincts jump in that we need to protect them. When I was in
Mm.
college, I was studying to be a teacher. I actually
Mhm.
was I got through 80% of my certification, decided I didn't want to be a teacher, mostly because of what they were teaching in schools. But
Yeah,
when I was
I
doing
get that.
my certification, we had to do, like, in person, in classroom hours, like, working with a real teacher as, like, a kind of teaching assistant. I worked in a Boston public middle school, and when I went into the school, they had the same wall of genders. Like, the first thing you walked in was all of the flags. Um, and I remember, like, seeing that and being like, "Whoa."
Yeah.
I you know, I didn't have this when I was in middle school. I started kind of hearing more about this when I was in high school, college, but, like, this is starting so young with all of these, and especially when you're talking about, like, not just the gender identities, but, like, all the sexual orientations as well. Like, how are you explaining to a kid all of these different, adult relationships, and you have teachers teaching these things? That was a big concern of mine, and by the time I got to that point, I was a little bit more, like, questioning some of the things that I believe, but I remember that
Mhm,
being something that has stuck with me of just the indoctrination and it how young it was starting,
mhm.
with kids. Yeah, I mean, what middle school is, what, 10, 11 years old,
Yeah,
and especially because that is the age when people were pushing for these surgeries. Like, we need to let kids who are going through puberty be put on puberty blockers and have some of these hormones and things. So you're teaching kids at this young age all of these genders and sexual orientations, and then are also pushing for these laws where they're being affirmed and no one can push back, no one can question them. We're gonna put them on puberty blockers. Like, there's at that point, there's no way for a kid that age to almost, like, escape this, because 'cause
no.
you're gonna be taught it in school, then you're gonna be affirmed, then you're gonna go and get put on puberty blockers. There's no opportunity for this kid to develop the, you know, rational thinking to be able to figure out, "Hey, I actually was kind of being brainwashed," or maybe this isn't the
Yeah.
right decision for me, and this isn't something that I actually want. I was just a 10-year-old who was told to be part of a social club, and now I'm being put on puberty blockers."
Mm. Do you think that there is a genuinely nefarious aspect of this, or do you think it's all to do with vibes?
Hmm. Nefarious, I don't think that there is anyone who is intentionally trying to hurt kids, like someone who is going, "What if we
Yeah.
put all of the kids on these medications and then we will be able to, do something with them," or anything like that. I think it is a lot of people who have genuinely bought into this idea that feelings are the most important thing, and
Mm.
that, facts don't matter. What is most important is, are we hurting someone's feelings? And
Wow.
and when you take that to its logical conclusion, then you end up doing
Mhm.
a lot of crazy things from the thought of thinking, "I'm a good person, and I'm
Yeah.
maybe protecting people, protecting their mental health, protecting them from, um, the horrors of society and all of these things," but really what you end up doing is just reinforcing really terrible ideas. And, when
Yeah.
it comes to kids, indoctrinating them into these ideas, and then when it comes to adults, really holding them hostage into these ideas. But I do think it is coming from a place of people who are saying, who are generally believing, well, we want to do what's best, and what is best for people is to validate everything that they feel about themselves, and to, um, make it so that people who are, historically marginalized are listened to above everybody else. Like, I do think that it is, to a degree, a we're trying to almost, like, right the wrongs of history sort of situation. But it's just,
Hmm.
um, the way that people are going about it is, we're going to throw all facts and logic out the window, in
Yeah.
order to make people feel better about themselves, and that's the most important thing.
Like, what keeps ruminating in my mind is, this verse about darkness being traded for good, or essentially being called good. Bitter is sweet, sweet for bitter. Like, there's this replacement. They're in such darkness and they call that darkness light. They're in a deception. And I believe that because, obviously, in every respect, there are going to be those who are nefarious characters who look to usurp, create movements, usurp movements to gain power and control, and will use whatever means necessary, right or left. They don't care.
Yeah.
Right. But then the people in it, even within the framework, it's like I look at people like AOC and I actually believe she believes in all of those stupid ideas. I genuinely believe
Yeah.
she does. All right. Not the brightest bulb in the light shop. So there's multitudes of hers, and unfortunately, some of them end up in the halls of Congress, or some of them become your professors or whatever other position throughout society, and they have real ramifications. And so I want to sort of segue us for this last portion into how did you get to this place? You know, you are the least seeming individual to end up in a place where you're talking about conservative values and, liberty and justice for all, not social justice, but true justice. How did you get here?
Yeah, so I guess like we said, I took all of these beliefs very seriously. I was a
Mm,
true believer. I was not a I don't know if this is true, but maybe I'll go along with it because my friends are I was like, this is what it means to be a good person. Being a good person means,
mm,
doing all the land acknowledgments. It means doing all the pronoun rituals. It means like I was a menace. I was like, if you say something that's a microaggression, I'm reporting you
yeah.
to the dean of diversity.
Wow. You were
Like,
head snitch, like, you were
yeah, I
her,
was a head
yeah.
snitch. And I was like, I am making the world a better place. I am saving the
Yeah.
world from, um the evil of oppression. I am,
Mm,
you know, making sure that all of the oppressed people are safe from the microaggressions. Like I thought I was saving the world with all the stuff I was doing.
mm,
And I ended up actually in the hospital. I got really sick my freshman year and I ended up in the hospital and I was actually, paralyzed. Half of my body was paralyzed. I have an autoimmune disorder that was, diagnosed at that time, but,
mm.
I was in the hospital and I couldn't do anything for myself. If you can't move half your body, you need to, shower, bathroom, everything has to be done with, like,
Yeah.
a nurse, and it was my dad was like, "You should make sure that you have a female nurse with you all the time to take care of you." And
Mm,
at that time, though, as you were talking about, I'm going, what does this mean? Like, a female nurse, what is a woman? My brain literally broke because to some degree,
wow.
like, there's a part of my brain that was still working. I was like,
Yeah.
"This makes sense that I would need a female nurse because I
Mm,
was 18. I'm, like, the youngest person on the adult floor of the hospital. I can't do
mm.
anything for myself. Of course, I'm gonna feel more comfortable and feel more
Yeah.
safe with a female nurse," but I'm also like, what it like, but what if I'm, like, oppressing someone? What if I misgender someone? Like, if I ask for a female nurse, what does that mean? Why do I feel like this is
Mm.
more comfortable? Like and every part of my brain was like, "You're not supposed to think about this. Like, you're not supposed to ask these questions. You're not supposed to even consider there's a difference between male and female. If you do, then you're
Mhm.
oppressing people. You might make somebody off themselves. Like, you can't think this way or else you're a bad person and you're an
Yeah.
oppressor and you're all of these things that you've thought other people were." And um I ended up asking for a female nurse because I did at that point. I was like, I just need to ask for it because I know this is what's going to make me feel comfortable. And I was actually in
Mm.
Texas when this happened, so it wasn't like an issue, where
Okay.
anybody
Yeah.
was going to be offended by it. But just the fact that I had this thought and that had said I would prefer a female nurse over a male nurse, I started to question, like, am I a bad person? And, like, is
Wow.
my brain so beyond broken that I had these thoughts that I, like, couldn't even I couldn't shut it down, I couldn't quiet my brain, there must be something wrong with me, and so for the next few years after this, maybe 2 years,
Uh-huh.
I kinda started to have these thoughts, but I was like, "Well, I just need to double down kind of on what I believed," because, again, all the people around me, all the adults around me are telling me that this is true, um, so and who am I? I'm some, like, 18-year-old college student, I don't know any better, so I'm like, I'm there must be something wrong with me, I must be a bad person, so I need to work on myself and, like, double down and work on just becoming a better woke person, and, I became super depressed because
Yeah.
I I'm thinking I'm a bad person, I'm starting to see these cracks now in, like, all what I'm thinking and what I'm like, is there something wrong with my brain? Like, am I broken? Am I a bad person? Is there can I turn off my brain? Can I not think about things? Like,
Wow.
I'm so worried that, yeah, I am now this person that I was trying to prevent, from existing in the world. And yeah, for about 2 years, I just was like, beyond able to, like I couldn't think clearly, and I just, yeah, felt terrible about every single thing that I did. Um, and then I kind of got to a point where I realized maybe there isn't a disconnect between, like, truth and being a good person. And
Hmm.
maybe being a good person means recognizing the truth. Or maybe, like, truth is more important and, like, being a good person will come out of that. But I was like, there must be some connection between truth and goodness. Like, there can't it
Where did
can't
that
be
come
that
from?
I think it was that I was just really realizing that everything that I was believing wasn't true. Like, it wasn't aligning with what I was seeing, you know? I think this wasn't just with the gender stuff, it also started with the race stuff. So we talked earlier about how, like, I
Mhm.
wasn't really able to be friends with, like, white people. I started to
Yeah.
become friends with this guy that I was working with at one of my student clubs, and he was, like, the
Mhm.
nicest person. He was also, like, at the time, like, he was a super ally, like, he knew all
Yeah.
the woke terms and stuff, and people still, like, hated him because he was white. And I was like, this doesn't seem right. Like, this
Yeah.
is the nicest he's, like, the nicest person. He's trying to say all the right things and do all the right things and participate in all of the rituals and um, and he's
He's
apologizing
in
for
70 clubs. Like, he's in every club.
yeah,
He's in all
and
of it.
yeah, and yet, like, he's still being like, because he's a white guy, he's still being told that he's, like, a bad person or that he's not allowed to, like, you know, speak or anything, and this was, like these are a few situations where I had these kind of wake ups, but I had, like, one with gender, I had kind of one with race, I
Mhm.
had one with, like, I had a few, and now I'm thinking I had one with, like, BLM where I actually looked into the
Mhm.
stats of, like, police shootings, and I was like, "Okay, like, this isn't matching up with what I'm being
Mm.
heard about this genocide," and so I'm
Oh.
sitting here, though, and I'm like, "So what I've been told isn't true. What
Yeah.
I've been told is I'm supposed to be lying to people because that's what makes me a good person." And I had some conversations with my, like, friends and classmates where I was like, pretty much like, "There seems to be a disconnect here," and what I was pretty much told
Mhm.
was like, "But, um like, people might hurt themselves, but, people are being oppressed by this, but if these facts are being used to harm people, then we can't really acknowledge them. Like, if you talk about this stuff, then you're like a Fox News watching Trump supporter," like, and I'm like
Mm.
and that was, like, the worst thing you could be called at the time, right?
Yeah.
I'm I'm like, "Okay, so what I'm being told is facts and goodness are at opposition to each other, right? What's
Mhm.
more important is to be good, but being good means you have to lie to people and believe things that aren't true." And that's where I was like, "This disconnect, like, this can't be
The
right." And it
cognitive dissonance you're explaining is at this the way you're describing this is the definition because I have this long held notion that it is impossible to live under cognitive dissonance for too long without going into genuine insanity. So, I
Mhm.
mean, you have this thing going on for 2 years where you're literally
Yeah.
just battling yourself. Do you have social media at this time? Like, are you trying to saturate
Mm-mm.
yourself with like woke stuff? What are you doing to combat, the voice of reason?
Um, I'm spending a lot of time in the Rainbow Lounge. Like, I'm just, like, surrounding
Okay.
myself with people, and I'm, like yeah, surrounding myself with people who are believing the same way. I am,
Mhm.
like if I'm, like, alone, I
Mhm.
am just, like, diving into my work and just trying not to think about anything else except my schoolwork. Like, I'm just trying to
Mhm.
escape the world, um, and yeah, it was really it was hard. It was really hard, and it was really I was in a very dark place, again, of thinking I was either a bad person or thinking that, you know, everything in reality is, like, immoral. Like, reality is immoral. Like, that was kind of what I'm thinking, which is, like, how do you not
Wow.
become a nihilist when you're thinking
Yeah.
truth is evil? Um, and so that was, like I ended up at this position of being, like, I need to I need to figure out a way to, like, mesh these 2 things together. Like, I need to figure out how to
Mhm.
be good and true. And
Okay.
and so that was kind of the,
Why did you need true though? Because there's something about you that,
mhm.
and I obviously there's folks who could care less about the truth. Why did you care so much about the truth?
Well, that's a really good question. I think that's something I think about a lot. Well, I did
Mhm.
go to MIT to study data science. I like, truth was
Okay.
something that like, I was a math major initially, but I'd
Uh-huh.
switched to data science, but truth and fact and, figuring out the world and how it works was what got me into STEM in the first place. I was always so interested
Wow.
in how the world worked. Um,
Mhm.
and so I don't know, like, exactly what drove that to being, like, my highest value,
Mhm.
but, um, that was something that was always really important to me, and so and I said for me, like, when I did become so woke, it was because I thought it was true,
Yeah.
and so when I realized it wasn't true, like, that was what broke me. It was, "Oh, this isn't true. This isn't actually doing what I thought it was gonna do. This isn't actually
Mhm.
making the world a better place. Okay, I need to kind of figure out what's going on now." Um,
Yeah.
so I don't really know, like, because from a young age, I feel like that was kind of always the case. Like I said, I was always
Yeah.
a math nerd and stuff, and I liked math because it just felt like it helped me understand the world. But um, but yeah, I don't exactly know. Oh, sorry, I have to say. So,
Mhm.
uh, I probably have about 5 more minutes. I'm sorry, I didn't
That's
realize
okay.
how long this conversation's been
It's
going.
all good. No, it's so good.
But
It's all
yeah.
good. Yeah. So, we'll definitely try to get you back for a second time on, but essentially I kind of maybe would like to use this point to give you a sort of soapbox moment,
Mhm.
because there's this idea like, okay, Trump came in and therefore woke is dead. And sure, on the surface, but it's rebranded and actually seems like many of them are doing what you tried to do in your 2 year uh, woke hiatus, which is to double down and triple down. Like
Mhm.
you see some of these politicians, and I didn't see stuff like this in the last 15 years,
Yeah.
right? How far they're willing to go with this. They're really just sort of asserting themselves. And so, what I guess is your message, like when it comes to this specific subject and issue right now, both to kids as well as to parents and everybody else?
Um. Yeah. I guess if I was to give one message, it would be trust yourself. I think that's some if I was to give my past self some advice, trust yourself. You have eyes, you can use them, you can
Mm,
see. And I think a lot of what people are being taught is you can't trust your brain and your thinking and you have to like offset it to somebody else or like export your thinking to somebody else. And so
yeah,
like if you're looking out into the world and you're seeing, "Hey, this person doesn't look like a man, they're saying they're a man," or, "This person
yeah,
seems really nice, but they're the wrong race." Like, you know, you can trust yourself and your own judgment and trust that maybe what I'm seeing is true, even if people around me are saying that, I have to agree with them.
mm,
And I think that's probably the biggest message I would give to people is to try to, like yeah, just try to know that you have a brain for a reason and you can use it and trust it and you can think through and figure out this stuff, and if somebody is telling you not to think, like,
mhm,
that's not somebody who has your best interest in heart.
yeah. That's so good. Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story. Yeah, this one personally, like you exist in my favorite genre of content, which is like the hashtag walk away. Like that is, besides seeing protesters who are sitting in the highway getting dragged off of the freeway, that's like another a
Mhm.
guilty pleasure of mine. But besides that, like your stories are the reminder that all of what you are now doing and individuals like yourself are called to is not in vain. So, continue to use your voice. Now, where can people find you before you got to skedaddle?
Yeah, I you can find me I'm on Twitter,
Hmm.
Instagram, TikTok, Kiyah Willis. I also have a YouTube I'm trying to build, which is also my
Perfect.
name, Kiyah Willis, but yeah, that's where you
Okay,
find me.
perfect. We'll make sure that people go ahead and flood your YouTube page. All right. Well, appreciate you for joining us today. And thank you guys for tuning in. Till the next time. Peace. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Now, if you'd like to stay around, make sure to click that little subscribe button down there, or you can show some love by going to the description below and clicking on the button titled Buy Me a Coffee leave a little something there or click on the Cash App. Leave a little something here. Till the next time, peace.
Who are you praying to? In quiet times, the one you are